My name's Brian Harper. I'm the Director of Communications at Divers Alert Network, and I'm here today talking to Myles Schwartz from the Free Descent podcast. Welcome, Myles.
Thanks, Brian.
Glad to have you. So, Myles, I understand Free Descent is a podcast out of SoCal, and you said your primary audience is young dive professionals. Can you talk a little bit more about reaching that audience?
Yeah, definitely. So it's definitely been a journey. I've been doing the podcast for about a year and a half, and it's mainly based out of SoCal, but we have a lot of divers all over the world. I got the opportunity to travel and kind of branch out to the European market as well over the summer. So that's been great, and just meeting young dive instructors from all over the world. And truly, I mean, we have found that telling stories from anybody that are inspiring for young instructors for their own dives and like for their classes as well, those are the things that people want to hear.
Fantastic. So what are some of the most memorable stories in your time as a podcaster and a content creator in the scuba industry? What are some of the most interesting, meaningful, memorable kind of stories that you've come across?
Yeah, so I would say the most meaningful one we just did a couple months ago with Ranva from Fourth Element. She's the head of sales there, but she's also part of the Explorers Club, and she runs Nixie Expeditions. And her story about becoming a diver, becoming a cave diver, working for Fourth Element, it is out of this world, and it has inspired me heavily, and I hope that it inspires other young instructors and just young divers in general of all the different avenues they can go as far as the exploration side of diving.
Fantastic. Well, I'll have to check that episode out. It sounds cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your journey into diving. How did you first get interested in diving, decide to become a diver, and go pro?
So I'm actually from Wichita, Kansas, and there's not a lot of diving or oceans there, obviously. But both of my parents are avid travelers, and they were divers. And so when I graduated high school, my mom and I went diving and got certified in Belize, and I was just hooked. And so I had just graduated high school, and I said, I don't really want to go to college. I think I just want to be an instructor. Well, both my parents being teachers, they said, no, you're going to finish out college.
Right.
And so I was chomping at the bit to graduate. And as soon as I did, 3 weeks later, I was down in Costa Rica finishing all my professional certifications.
Fantastic.
So finished that and dove all over Central America, instructed in Costa Rica just for a little while, and then ended up in San Diego. And I've been there for the last 3 years instructing at Ocean Enterprises.
Oh, very cool.
Yep.
I love hearing that Belize is what really, set the hook for you. That my favorite dives I've ever done were at Holchan Marine Park off Belize.
Me too.
So, yeah, I love Holchan. It's just wonderful.
Me too.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, so you became a dive professional. You've been an instructor, you said 3 years? And so during that time, you also have become a content creator for diving. Tell us what that journey looked like. How did you get there?
Yeah, so honestly, another instructor friend and I, we realized that every weekend after we would get out of the water, we were driving home, we would call each other and just chat about our classes.
Yeah.
And one day we said, man, maybe other people want to hear this. Maybe other young instructors and young divers want to hear about classes and about what you go through. And, just the day-to-day life of a young dive instructor, that maybe we have a different perspective than some of the other instructors out there. So that was the very start, and it has really bloomed from there in the last year and a half. This is my second DEMA, and by far my best DEMA.
Good.
I've had an absolute blast seeing old friends and making a ton of new friends and new connections. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at right now.
Very cool. Well, being Dan, we want to delve into the safety aspects of things a little bit. And so I'm interested in your perspective on keeping yourself safe, keeping your divers safe, your students, and what that looks like not only as a dive professional, but also as a content creator. So how do you bring in the safety aspects while also maintaining the adventure, the excitement, the enthusiasm?
Totally. I mean, so at the very beginning of every single episode, as well as in the description, we tell people that our podcast is for fun and that for real dive instruction, you need to listen to your dive professionals
Mm-hmm.
and to only ever go with their advice and only dive to your experience level and certification level.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, to have fun, but the only priority is safety.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else comes after that. And that's how I am in my classes as well on the podcast.
Yeah.
And so on the podcast, it does take quite a bit of editing sometimes just to make sure, like, okay, yes, this is something that we're recommending to the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, really saying, like, okay, is this something that we want to advertise or
Mm-hmm.
not? Because people are listening as maybe not divers at all yet.
Yep.
And so we want to make sure that everyone is staying safe from the podcast standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
just as I do in my classes.
Great. Well, I love hearing that, you know, you're internalizing this idea of how can we do this responsibly, you know? So obviously being Dan, you know, we love hearing about how people consider that as they are spreading the good message of the underwater world. And so it's really encouraging to hear that that's such a, you know, important part of your thought process as you approach this.
For sure, yeah. I mean, it is the only thought that I have when editing episodes.
Yeah.
And thinking about, okay, is this something that we want to highlight or not? And is this going to be, you know, you're thinking about like helpful and entertaining at the same time and meeting in the middle between the two as far as exploration, but also doing it in the most safe way possible. I mean, with Ranva, we made sure that everyone in that episode knew that she was extremely certified and extremely capable, and that someday you can get there, but it's not going to be tomorrow and not without the help of a lot of really great instructors.
Cool. So could you tell us about any experiences you might have had that have helped, you know, instill the safety mindset that you clearly have as you dive and as you create content?
Diving in Southern California is tough, Brian.
Okay.
It is not an easy place to dive.
Sure.
The Pacific is tough in that area. And so when I'm out shore diving off of La Jolla Shores with my students, it's hit or miss. Sometimes it's cold water and it's big surf a lot of the times and low visibility.
Yeah.
And the canyon is a tough dive. I mean, it's a very low sloping wall, but it's still a wall dive. And so you don't always have that bottom right underneath you on dives 3 and 4 when they can go that deep. And so it's a great training ground, but it's a difficult training ground. And so instructing there has completely changed my mindset on safety from the time I was, you know, it's different when you're in the tropics. And so when I'm learning in Costa Rica, it's great instruction. I became an amazing instructor. But when I got to San Diego, I learned a whole new world of safety and instruction just based on the conditions being what they are.
Right on.
And so, you know, at that site, it is really difficult. I've dove it 100 plus times, and I've dove it by myself with students, everything. But at the end of the day, like, you still have to call dives when you have to call dives, whether you're by yourself or with students. Yeah.
That's the second thing you've said that really, you know, touches on a key message that Dan really likes to share. The first was when you mentioned the importance of not exceeding your training. And that's something that we really try to promote, that, you know, you stick with what you've been trained to do and what you have experience doing. And then if you want to push your limits and do more, get the right instruction, find the right professional to guide you into that next level. And now you've mentioned, you know, being aware of the conditions that you're diving in. And the second thing you mentioned was the choice to call a dive and to bail if you have to. That is, again, whether you're in the middle of a dive and things are not going well, or you haven't even gotten in the water yet, but there's something wrong with yourself, with the conditions, with your buddy, with your gear, whatever. There are so many good reasons to call a dive. Have you had personal experience with having to do that?
Yeah, so it's great that you bring this up, and we were kind of talking about it last night. But I recently called a dive at my favorite dive site, and a dive site that I've dove 100 plus times by myself and with students, and I felt so like awful after. I felt like, man, I'm an instructor. I've dove this site so many times. I should be able to push through any conditions that are thrown at me. I should be able to do this. But I wasn't. And I'm really glad that I didn't at the end of the day, because I was with another friend and he ended up going back out on a self-reliant dive.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily he was safe at the end of the day, but he did lose gear
Mm-hmm.
because, like I said, the Pacific, it's ruthless.
Right.
And so, when it's like that, the very least that can happen to you is that you lose gear.
Sure.
Let alone anything worse.
Yeah. Well, very cool. I mean, it's an important, if difficult, decision to make. I think another thing we spoke about earlier was the role that social pressure can play in making decisions like that. In dive safety in general, it's such a powerful factor in dive safety that may not be spoken about, written about as much as it should, but social pressure is a pretty powerful factor, and pushing through that can be very challenging.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the whole reason that I was out there in the first place was social pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Because before I left at my house, I looked at the conditions.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't know, dude. Maybe
Sure.
not. And then we get out there and I'm looking at the waves and I'm like, I still think it's kind of iffy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying, it's okay, it's okay. And so this friend of mine, he was actually my open water student.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you know what? If my open water student is saying that we can go out, we're going to go out. I'm going to buck up and we're going to do it.
Okay.
And so we get in the water and I'm okay. But then it's just rolling. And there's no break between the waves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm at the break. It's right up. It is on my nose. And it's just over and over and over again. And finally, after, I don't know, the sixth wave that's just taken me out, I feel myself starting to have that panic.
Yeah.
And I've been diving long enough, I can feel when I start to feel that. And I'm like, I can't get through this
Mm-hmm.
and then go down out there. And at the end of the day, it was also dusk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that we were going to come back out
Mm-hmm.
and the conditions were going to be the same, but it was going to be dark.
Yeah.
And so I turned to him, I said, I'm done. I'm not doing this. I'm getting out. And so I got out and I called it and I felt awful because he made a big deal about going back out and he was going to power through and do it and all these things. And, I was kind of down on myself about it, that social pressure again. But he comes back afterward because he had lost gear. And he came back about 15 minutes. And I said, you didn't go on a dive. And he said, oh, yeah, I did. I was like, whatever, show me your computer.
Yeah.
Show me your computer. Let's see the dive you went on. He said, well, it's kind of hard to dive without a mask. I said,
oh, man.
Yep.
Okay.
And that right there is why I went in when I did.
Yeah.
So.
Well, fantastic. It sounds like you made the right call.
Yeah, I just hope that I can keep making good calls like that.
Hear,
and
hear.
I'm thankful for the instruction that I have and the support that I have in Southern California at Ocean Enterprises and with the whole podcast community that we are keeping ourselves safe and we're keeping the students safe.
Wonderful. And it sounds like, we really appreciate you sharing that story with us because that's the type of message that is really important to us to promote. And we have data that shows that kind of thing is a significant factor in dive accidents. So.
It doesn't surprise me one bit.
Myles, have you ever had to use Dan's services?
I have, yeah. So I use Dan through my shop. And then I also use Dan personally and professionally on my own as well. I had a really rough dive, same site, same conditions, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And I had to call Dan because I lost a lot of gear. And so I called them. I said, how can you help me with this? How can I get reimbursed? And they were really helpful. The thing that I noted the most is the customer service. The customer service at Dan is absolutely fabulous. And everyone at my shop also thinks so. We can't express enough how great it is. The other thing that I use Dan for all of the time is that the program that you guys have for signing up your students during their open water course is
student membership.
It's fantastic. I sign up every single student, and obviously it's not a requirement, but it is now best practice at Ocean Enterprises.
Wonderful.
And so that's something that, you don't have to do it by standards, but you should, and it's kind of frowned upon if you don't do it at our shop because of the conditions, truly, because of how rough things are in California. But as we all know, things can get rough and hairy anywhere you are in the world. So
Fantastic.
I'd recommend that to anyone.
Yeah, it's covered by Dan at no cost to the student or the instructor. And we're so glad you and your colleagues at your shop are taking advantage of the program.
Yeah, and I hope that everyone that is in the free descent community as well, all of our young instructors that listen to the podcast, I hope that they sign up their students as well, no matter where they are in the world, because it gives you such a peace of mind when you're teaching to know that these students, one, I'm making them as safe as possible, but if something did happen, they would be covered, I would be covered, and everybody would be a lot better off for it.
Yeah. Well, Myles Schwartz of the Free Descent podcast, it's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much. Before we go, can you tell us where to find you on social?
Thanks, Brian. You can find us on Instagram at Free Descent Podcast. You can also find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, so Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, the whole bit.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks.